Hi, 7th grade. Today, I want to start by going through the second part of your autopsy report. The first part was pretty self explanatory. It was just copying things that you read about. But this part took a little more analysis. So I just want to make sure that you understood what was found in the autopsy. So this paragraph right here talked about what was found in the external and the internal autopsy, which gives us a lot of clues to what took place before the murder and what the cause of death was. So I want to go through a few things. So the body was taken to the morgue for autopsy. The external examination happened and found a single stab wound in the upper right quadrant of the abdomen. Okay, so we knew that. Further examination showed dead skin cells underneath the victim's fingernails that may have indicated a struggle before death. So these skin cells, okay, can be used for DNA extraction. So it is very likely that underneath the victim's fingernails, those skin cells are the suspects. Okay, because when you think about it, if you were going to fight somebody, you're going to use your hands and you're going to try to grab. Well, anytime you grab something, your fingernails pick up particles of whatever you are grabbing. So if you scratch your face right now, you are getting your own skin cells underneath your fingernails. Okay, so that's a very important clue for us finding out who the suspect is. And then upon internal examination, okay, so a couple different things were found. First thing was found was a partially digested bacon and egg sandwich, okay, along with evidence to the victim's liver causing massive internal bleeding. Okay. They also found head trauma to the occipital lobe of the brain. That is, the occipital lobe is the back part of your brain. Okay, so just to go through this. Does the partially digested meal support time of death? Yes. Typically, you eat a bacon and egg sandwich in the morning, and we found that Ralph was killed around 8:40 in the morning. We just talked about this. Skin cells indicate a struggle because you're going to use your hands to fight back, and then they can use that those cells for DNA extraction, which we'll talk about today, in order to find the DNA of the killer. And then what could cause damage to the victim's brain, indicating how the victim fell. The occipital lobe's the back. So if you look at that picture, or you could just think like if you fell, you're going to fall and you're going to hit your head on the back, either on the wall or on the ground, somewhere around there. Okay. The other one I want to go through. So this one, 3 abnormalities. If you couldn't find that, some people are having trouble with that. It was up here. Autopsies generally test for 3 abnormalities, including infection, changes in body tissue and organs, and presence of chemicals such as drugs or poisons. Okay. The actual cause of death. Right away, you're going to think that the cause of death is a stab wound. But like we talked about, being stabbed doesn't mean that you die. Okay, plenty of people get stabbed and they don't die. In Ralph's situation, the stab wound caused some things internally that caused him to die. So the cause of death was damage to the liver, internal bleeding, and head trauma to the occipital lobe. Okay. You could mention that the internal bleeding was caused from the stab wound, but you don't need to. You could just say that cause of death was internal bleeding by the liver and head trauma to the occipital lobe. Okay. If you have other questions on the autopsy, please feel free to email me. But we're going to move on to the labs. So what I need you to remember when we start the labs is I need you to remember this part right here, that the dead skin cells. So we're going to actually use those to figure out who killed Ralph. Okay. In today's post, there's this document, Murder Mystery Suspect Identification. So today we're going to learn who the 2 suspects are. Using the time of death, police were able to find a couple different people and a couple different motives. Then we're going to talk about these labs that you're going to do virtually. And I'll go through those with you. You have 2 class periods to do this, so today and then tomorrow. And it will be due on Thursday morning at 8 a.m. And I will let you know what post to do that in. Okay, so let's read the introduction together. So in the previous assignment, you learned that skin cells were discovered under the murder victim's fingernails. We just talked about that. The medical examiner believes that this could be evidence that a struggle occurred before the murder and therefore collect the cells for further analysis. The DNA is considered to be evidence from the crime scene. The medical examiner cautioned that skin cells could belong to the victim. Okay, so it could be the victims, like we talked about scratching your face, or just your cells underneath there. So it could be the victims, but it also could be the suspects. The time of death determined by the victim's body temperature helped the police narrow down the list of suspects to 2 men who knew the victim, had a potential motive, and a window of opportunity to commit the crime that would correspond with the estimated time of death. Suspect 1 is an employee at the hotel and told police that he was dating the victim's girlfriend until recently, but he did not hold a grudge against the victim. Suspect 2 is on the maintenance team at the Ritz Palace Hotel. Recently, he had been looking to get out of maintenance and into other areas of the hotel. He is currently applying for different jobs within the hotel, but he said he did not want to work as an elevator operator. Okay. With the labs, you are going to be thinking about the fact that you're going to need to run 4 tests. So you're going to need to do suspect 1, suspect 2, the victim, and the evidence. The reason you are doing the victim is to make sure that the evidence is not the victim's. Okay. Police have asked you to compare the samples of DNA and submit a report identifying which suspect should be charged with the crime. You will have sufficient evidence to support your charges before an arrest can be made. You must also prove that the evidence DNA does not belong to the victim. We will do the labs virtually. You will find the results and submit a report about who you think killed Ralph. Okay, so the next 2 days you're going to work through these virtual labs. So if you need me to break it up for you, I would do these 3 videos first. Okay, call that day 1, and then this day 2. If you want to crank it out all in one day, that is fine. Okay, so first thing you're going to need to learn about DNA, so you're just going to watch this video. It's going to show you like what DNA is, give you a little background on that. Then you're going to go to this website. If you don't have a flash player, you need to go here and unlock it. Oh. I don't know why it's not working on mine. Oh, it just said. Or you can just go to a different browser if you need. Normally it just comes up where you can undo it. There you go, allow. Okay, so you'll click Start Lab, and then you'll just need to read what to do. Okay, the next button is right here. It's kind of hard to see. You'll read through it. Okay, there will be some points when they will ask you to like move things to actually do the lab, but it is important that you are reading through this because this is going to show you how the lab works and how you're extracting this DNA. There are questions for you right here. Okay. This question right here, where do we collect the cells for Ralph's case? Think about what we just talked about with the autopsy. Okay. After you do this DNA extraction, then there's another lab. It's called PCR. Okay, this one moves a little faster, and it has you do a little more, but again, you are answering those questions. Let's see if this one works on here. Oh, that's extraction again. With PCR, there is quite a bit of you having to do your own work. Make sure you're reading through this. I'm just trying to get to the part where you actually have to move things. Okay, so this part, you're moving your extracted DNA. Okay, so you're actually, so this is my mouse right now. Okay, so you'll click and then drag over here. Okay, click, drag. Okay, and you'll do that until it does that, and you'll just continue to work through that. Okay, so that's what I mean where it's a little more hands-on. Answer those 3 questions, and then the last step is called gel electrophoresis. In this, the scientists take the DNA that was extracted and multiplied, and they run it through a gel to create bands of DNA. Each person has their own unique sequence, so in the end, you should be able to match the evidence to the killer, hopefully. If we were to do this in class, we would have done the DNA extraction and the gel electrophoresis, a version of those things. We don't have the equipment to do the PCR, but these are good alternatives, these virtual labs. Okay, so at the end of this, when you're finished with all of this, it does need to be turned into Google Classroom. I'll have you turn it into Tuesday's post. Okay, so you have today and tomorrow to work on it. Technically Thursday because you don't have school. And then please turn it into Tuesday's post. Do not turn it into Monday's post. Okay, on Thursday, we will talk about the results of the gel electrophoresis, and we'll talk about what your crime scene report will look like. If you have questions, please email me.